pleasure. A couple of housekeeping items. We'd ask that you silence your cell phones. It would make things quieter here. Also, the way things work is after we call the roll and approve the minutes, the way things are managed is city staff presents on an item, and initially it's open just to the Plan Commission for technical questions. Once we're done with technical questions, we have public comment. If you have something to say, please step up to the microphone and state your name and address so we have it for the minutes. Once everybody has had their say, we bring it back to the commission for discussion and a vote. With that, let us call the roll.
Kathleen Propp.
Here.
David Borsek.
Present.
Ed Bowen. Steve Cummings. Michael Ford. John Hintz. John Kiefer. Robert Weigert. Thomas Perry.
Here.
Andrew Mott.
Here.
Thomas Voitai.
Here. Moving on to approval of the minutes from the October 16th meeting. Do we have anything to add, delete, subtract, anything?
Move approval.
Second.
Been moved to seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item number 1, residential design standards variance to allow a porch alteration using materials not similar to the materials on the original building at 202 West Melvin Avenue. We've seen this before.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this item, as was mentioned, has come through twice before, actually. The first time it came through was September 4th, so a couple months back. And then you all laid it over until October 2nd to give us some time to work with the applicant, and then we laid it over until today. Basically, to refresh your memories, the applicant had this area here that she was looking at. So the front steps and stoop here. And then there's these knee walls here in question on either side flanking the steps. Kind of unique and an important feature of this house here. Basically what she wanted to do, her and her contractor, was to remove these steps due to their dilapidated state and then replace the steps with composite decking, steps of composite decking, I should say. The walls would have been demolished and the steps would just be composite, and that would be it. We as staff felt that this needed to go through Plan Commission. We didn't really like the initial proposal, so we initially recommended denial. And then instead of denying it, you all wanted us to work with the applicants. That's what we were going to do. I went out on site with one of the inspectors and with our housing specialist, and they both thought perhaps we could get a couple of quotes from contractors. So that was what we did next, was we went to a couple of contractors, heard back from one saying that it would be about $5,000 to rehab what was there, so rehab this. And then the other contractor said maybe about $8,000 to demolish and reconstruct all of this, obviously to code. We talked to the applicant after the October 2nd Plan Commission meeting, and we recommended that she consider a housing loan through the city as a potential means to address the issue, at least give it a try. So she did apply for that. We ran the initial numbers, it looked pretty good. Finished the math, and unfortunately it doesn't look like it'll be the best fit, at least the initial loan that we tried for her. So where we are now is we are looking at potentially other loans, so maybe the block grant program, or maybe another special city loan program for applicants that can't afford repairs or are dealing with code issues that need to bring their properties up to code. So we are exploring a few options, and we would recommend laying this over until the December 4th Plan Commission meeting to exhaust those options. The disadvantage or the challenge right now, though, is with the block grant program. Those programs are not open until December 15th for our application process. So she'd have to apply between December 15th and March 15th, and then she wouldn't know until the spring whether she qualifies. So that's kind of the quandary we're facing right now, but we are trying to explore those options too. We looked at the Healthy Neighborhoods loan first. That's kind of the more mainstream loan for a lot of applicants. And that's about it on this one.
All right, technical questions. Go ahead, Ed.
I guess, is there a reason for, is there a procedural reason for just the December 4th layover? If it doesn't sound like she'll know anything by that meeting, would it make sense to lay it over to because I don't think we have a second December meeting, or do we do?
No, we do.
It's council that doesn't meet twice
That's correct, their last meeting is
I just know our schedule gets screwy
Yep.
between now and January. I mean, would it make sense to lay it over into January?
probably up to a meeting. in
You know what I'm
January.
saying? I mean, if we're not gonna.
It sounds like we
if-
can't resolve anything in
If
December.
we're not gonna resolve anything with any of these programs that you're looking at between now and then,
Yeah.
and she's not under the gun to make the repairs between now and then,
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
just lay it over to January. I guess I would.
And ideally too, if she could qualify for a loan, she wouldn't need the design standards variance, so that'd be the ideal situation. You know, if we can get her qualified for something, she wouldn't need to come back for a variance, you know, we would just
Sure.
let you all know.
Sure.
But, yeah, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
I guess I can't do anything yet.
Yeah.
Technical questions.
Any other technical questions? Seeing none, anyone from the audience here to speak to this item today? Doesn't look like it. Back to the commission.
I'd move to lay over until the first meeting in January.
Second.
Any discussion on that motion? Okay, let's call the roll on that.
All right. Perry?
Aye.
Mott?
Aye.
Crop?
Aye.
Forsick?
Aye.
Bowen?
Aye.
Wojtek?
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0 to lay over.
Okay, thank you. On to item number 2, grant storm sewer easements at 1600 Oshkosh Avenue, former Lakeshore Municipal Golf Course for Oshkosh Corporation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As mentioned, this is a request for the city to grant 3 storm sewer easements to Oshkosh Corporation. Up on the screen, I have, this is the site of Oshkosh Corporation's global headquarters, which is currently under construction. This request involves the granting of 3 storm sewer easements to discharge stormwater through city property to their final destinations. The first easement is towards the northwest corner of the property, or the western portion of the property. And this is a 30-foot wide by approximately 100-foot long easement that's going to connect Oshkosh Corp's property to Lake Butamore. And this will allow for the discharge of stormwater to an outfall entering the lake. The second easement, storm sewer easement B, is a 25-foot by approximately 45-foot easement to allow Oshkosh Corporation storm sewer outfall to connect to a city's stormwater quality basin. And then the last easement is over on the eastern portion of the property, labeled C. This is a 20-foot wide, kind of irregular shaped easement. Again, will allow Oshkosh Corporation to connect to the city's system park ponds and equalization pipe system. The city attorney is finalizing the easement documents, which will be recorded at the Winnebago County Register of Deeds once signed and approved by the Common Council. And staff is recommending approval of the 3 proposed storm sewer easements as requested.
Thank you, sir. Technical question? Seeing none, anyone here from the audience to speak to this item today? Nobody. Back to the commission.
Move for approval. Second.
Discussion on the motion? None. Call the roll.
All right. Perry?
Aye.
Mott?
Aye.
Crop?
Aye.
Forsick?
Aye.
Bowen?
Aye.
Wojtek?
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
All right, moving on to item number 3, conditional use permit for a community living arrangement located at 725 Butler Avenue.
Okay, thank you. This is conditional use permit for a community living arrangement located at 725 Butler Avenue. The applicant is the Bolt Company for Winnebago County. This is on Winnebago County grounds. We're requesting approval of a CUP to establish a 16-bed facility on county property up on the north side. You can see on the map that it's up by on the corner of Y and kind of A going up to the north. The county park is to the west. City of Oshkosh subdivisions are another quarter mile over to the west. So it's in generally an area of institutional uses. The subject area contains several county-owned buildings, including the County Parks Building and Parkview Health Center, which is kind of around it. The use itself, petitioner is proposing to develop a portion of the existing parcel into a 1-story, 16-unit community living arrangement. The facility would be county-operated and used for those individuals in a mental crisis health state. The facility would have approximately 10 staff between first and second shift and 1 to 2 overnight staff. The facility will also house some office space and a health and human services staff. I'm reading this because Mark wrote this and I didn't have time to review it today. The proposed use is we talked about it. The proposed use is classified as a community living arrangement with 16 occupants, and it does require a conditional use permit within the institutional district. In reviewing it, we didn't have a lot of concerns about this particular site. There's the aerial photo of the site. You can see where they're proposing to do it. It's on Butler Avenue, which is, these are all a system of private roads in there. Here's a closer up view of that particular site. Here's the site plan. You can see how it's being designed with a kind of a circular driveway out front, building kind of made into 2 wings. You can see the description. They're exceeding the maximum allowed parking space ratio, and the explanation is they're going to have staff meetings in this area. So we were supportive of that. I think the only real issue that we ran into from a code perspective was with the landscaping. They're required to have a certain amount of landscaping points, 320 points of building foundation plantings for this building. I think right now they're only providing 170 points. They indicate security concerns for the reduction in numbers of plantings, but we can't reduce the number of plantings via the CUP. They'd have to come through a conditional use permit. There's also other alternatives. You can do things, low-lying shrubs. There's various alternatives that we can still talk through with the applicant. The other concern was the applicant's lighting plan indicates 25-foot light poles. Our maximum right now when we adopted our new code is 20 feet. The building elevations appear to meet our code requirements, so there's no issues here. So at the end of the day, we're requesting approval of the CUP for a community living arrangement as proposed with the above findings with the following conditions. Revised landscaping plan to meet the required building foundation landscaping, and revise the lighting plan to show a maximum of 20 foot high. Sorry, I didn't show you these. Here are the elevations. It's a one-story structure. Brick and fiber cement siding are the combinations. Here are some color renderings. And those are your conditions.
All right, thank you, sir. Technical questions? David?
In the letter from Bolt, there was some indication of staffing levels. And I'm just wondering, with what's going on, the staffing issues across the street, is it inappropriate to, as one of the conditions to have a minimum staffing level there?
I can actually
Go
answer that. The staffing issues are dictated by the state of Wisconsin for a facility like this, as they would license it. And the applicant would have to say what their staffing levels are. In this particular case, it looks like a 1 to 4 during daytime hours. 1 to 4 is a fairly high level of staffing, frankly. However, they, as a crisis unit, I'm a little concerned about that as well, because it appears that it looks to be a diversion facility rather than using Winnebago County Mental Health Center. So the staffing levels do seem to be actually a little bit low, but we can't mandate that. It's a state. The state would supersede us based on the licensing of the facility, the CBRF license.
I think I understand. Can I continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think I understand that, but that the state mandates minimum staffing levels.
The state would mandate the minimum would be 1 staff 24 hours a day. As long as there's a head in a bed, there has to be at least 1 staff. As part of their application, though, they would have to indicate what they are planning to staff it at. And on the application, it would say a 1 to 4 ratio, which means if they had 16 residents, they'd have to have at least 4 staff there each shift. and they can't go below that.
That would be, and help me on this, if that would be in the application,
It would be in the application to the state, yes.
but can we say that they have to maintain that same,
No.
okay.
No, the state would supersede on that, because then they wouldn't issue a license, and then the building would sit there empty.
I was just wondering, that that it's aspirational and yet they would be falling short of that.
Well, they would have, if they are having a 1-to-4 ratio, they would have to maintain a 1-to-4 ratio, because the state will walk in at any time, day or night, to make sure that that's happening.
Thank you.
Other technical questions? Yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
Is the builder here? So, can I ask of the builder yet, or do we
We should
wait?
probably wait.
Let's get through
wait till
technical
he-
questions, and we'll bring the builder.
Any other technical questions? All right, seeing none, anyone here to speak from the audience to speak to this item today? Sir, we'd love to hear from you.
Work address or my home address?
You know,
Works fine.
And
Works fine.
Works fine, okay. Rogers Regardus, Bolt Technical Services, 2525 North Romer Avenue, Appleton, Wisconsin. I'm not sure what the zip code is, apologize. I'm the architect, designer, project manager for the project, worked on the plans. I can answer any questions, I mean.
All right,
Yes,
Thomas, go ahead.
exactly right
Yeah.
with the quantity. It all depends how many residents are gonna be there, depending on how many staff is gonna be there overnight or overnight. There'll be at least, probably during the day, probably 5, 6 minimum. That'll be there during the day. At night, it all depends on how many residents are there, if they only got a couple of them or if they got a full house. Personally, I don't know those requirements. That's somebody else that's dealing with that, but Thomas is correct on that. It's mandated by the state.
So a couple of questions for you. So the county obviously is doing this, and as it says in here, is a crisis mental health diversion facility. And it's definitely well needed. I wish more counties would do this because it's a significant cost savings for us as the taxpayer. But how come we haven't considered 2 side-by-side 8 beds? Because as a 16, we eliminate the intellectual disability population having a crisis. And it would be easy with this building to literally license 2 side-by-side 8s.
Yeah,
We need to buy the microphone so they can TV audience.
that was a requirement by Winnebago County to, the maximum that they can have is 16 beds. Their license is for 16, they're not gonna expand on this, or nothing like that. The 8x8 right now, obviously, what they do have, they have 2 buildings, Promise and Towards Tomorrow, I believe, is the other one. One is more of a long-term, like that people are staying there for a few months. The other one is more shorter term, that stays there for a couple of days. So that's how the wings are set up, so that one would be more long-term, for a little more long-term residents. So that's, anything else for intellectual, stuff like that, I apologize, I can't answer that.
Right.
I don't have the answer for that
But
one.
there was never a discussion to do
No.
2 side-by-side 8s. Okay.
No.
Other questions for the petitioner? Anything else to add, sir?
Nope.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else here to speak to this item today? Seeing none? Oh, go ahead, Tom.
I do just have one other thing, just in terms of the landscaping plan, there shouldn't be any problem whatsoever, because based on the fact that it's a crisis facility, it's very likely a locked facility.
Okay.
And so landscaping really shouldn't come into play.
Okay, thank you.
All right, back to the commission. Discussion? Motions?
It's a good location
I agree.
for this facility.
I'm glad we're doing it.
I'll move.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All right, call the roll, Mina.
Carrie,
Aye.
Mott,
Aye.
Pop,
Aye.
Borsick,
Aye.
Owen,
Aye.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Motion carried 6-0.
All right, our last item of business is called Other Business. Plan Commission closing comments from Mr. David Borsick, who is attending his final Plan Commission meeting after 33 years of service.
And I promise not to.
Really? 33?
Wow.
Oh, my word.
1985 is what Mina found out.
Older than you.
David's been on the commission
Darn
longer.
close, David.
Half
You're
of my
getting
staff has
darn
been
close.
alive.
Maybe
That's how long you've been on it. Longer than half of my staff has been alive.
When people get out of prison for murder sooner than.
You know, this,
So tell us what you want to say.
it
David.
fits in very nicely with what I wanted to say. One, I wanted to thank city elected officials for having the confidence in me to continue to allow me to serve the community. There are two people that are responsible that I'm here initially. One of them is at this table, but Gary Yakes and Kathy Propp asked me to be involved in city government a number of years ago, and 33 years ago. And
That's a number.
Thanks a
And
lot,
then-
Kathy.
God, I know. What have I done?
And she mentored me very reasonably well, except I never got above a C in deportment. But the other thing, also the professionalism of the city staff. It's over the years to see how things have evolved, and well, it was always to try to have things better in the community. We see that. I think that many things that we had hoped for a number of years ago are coming to fruition. But it's whether it's the planning staff or the other support staff, I really admire what their contribution to the community. The one thing that I noticed with the men and women that I had the opportunity to serve with, that whatever we did was never personal, and we always looked at what was in the best interests of our community. And I think that even at tonight, we take our responsibilities seriously. We never took ourselves too seriously. One of the things that I've always appreciated, and Tom, you're sort of the titular head of this, but the role of the university in this organization. I go back to Lurton and Sam Adams, the two that I think of immediately. But it is that tie has always been important in the professionalism that you showed personally, but also how you represented UWO in what they're doing to educate, particularly our children. And I want to recognize you and the university. Just a couple of observations in my focus. I know that we're always aware of our friends and neighbors, but we really are always working for the city. That's whose interest we really need to continually be aware of, and that's our focus. Certainly, Steve, stormwater has always been
Passion.
a passion,
Yeah.
and I think that,
Obsession.
well, obsessive
Look, fine
compulsive.
line, very fine line.
But I think that, especially as we're reworking big box stores and big lot developments to try to keep that, to remind that, to encourage citizens to live in the central community. My wife and I had the opportunity for the past year to live in urban downtown Oshkosh, and while that may sound a little bit like an oxymoron, it's the opportunity to walk to entertainment venues and restaurants, and is really it's a great environment. And I think that along with that, if we can rehabilitate homes and housing in the central area to encourage young adults, young families to use those as starter homes, I think that can do a lot to invigorate our community. Industrial development has also been another passion of mine, and probably been involved in that for excess of 40 years. And it's just important to remember to protect our industrial parks from not encroachment, but interaction with the neighbors on the outside, so that we don't wind up with negative issues. And last, to recognize the university not only as an important institution with our community and the economic impact that it makes, but also to challenge university to use that as an economic engine for city and regional development, and that they can meet the needs of local commerce and industry. And with that, I'd like to say thank you.
Thank you, David.
I just want to say that we appreciated your perspective.
Yes.
It'll be missed.
Yes.
The business, industrial, and even stormwater perspective.
Before we close on David here, looking back in some of the perspectives, David's been part of it 30-plus years. You've been through 2 major zoning code updates. That's where we rewrote the whole thing. You've been through 3 comp plans, 30-plus TID plans, downtown action plan, Imagine Oshkosh, 2 ped and bike plans, Highway 41 improvement plan, thousands of items before here, and I'm probably missing some plans. I meant to bring them all up here, but the box is too big. I couldn't do it. So we're going to miss you as nuts as you have made me over the years sometimes. I know it's all been from a good place, and it's all for the betterment of the community, so thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we have some lovely parting gifts for you.
Yes. You have a letter and a
So,
certificate.
you got this and this, and I got some other things.
If you announce leaving, you get a
Yeah.
party.
You get all types of good. Is there?
Mister.
Yeah.
Are there gift
So
cards
that-
in there?
No, we don't have budgeted for that.
Oh, no budget for okay. Like $5.
No, but I think I do have a water.
One comment I would make, David, is I appreciate you had a lot of passion about a lot of issues, and with you, it was never personal.
Exactly.
Even if you disagreed with your fellow members or whoever was sitting up there or the poor beleaguered city staff, it was never personal, and I find that to be really good role modeling for other people,
is.
especially for newer members. People need to learn that you can disagree like that while being civil and knowing that the big picture is what's best for the city. And I've seen people sort of modify your way of thinking based on you listening to what they had to say, which.
He won't admit to it.
But we've seen it.
But we know it. We know it's happened.
So, anything else for David?
He
So that-
modified our way of thinking too.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely, no question. All right.
Okay.
Do we have more?
Move to adjourn.
I was going to let David make the
Yeah,
motion. If
Oh, yeah.
I move to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we are done.
Ah.
All right, before you leave,